I heard a quote a couple of days ago that the Latin name for soil is humus, and the word human is derived from humus. We are literally the soil. If the soil is not well, neither will we be. It's no coincidence that the planet is suffering, and so are we in so many ways.
Before we dive into this week's episode, let's talk about a brand we both genuinely love, Cytoplan. You've probably heard us mention them before, and that's because their supplements are next level.
Yes, Cytoplan has been part of my routine for a while now. They just get it when it comes to health. Their whole approach is rooted in science and totally in tune with nature.
Exactly. Their formulas are bioeffective, which basically means the nutrients are in forms your body actually recognizes and uses properly and at the appropriate levels. Cytoplan is used and trusted by health practitioners across the country. Their formulas are developed by nutritional therapists and backed by over 3 decades of clinical insight. You really can feel the quality when you take them.
Plus, it's not just about what's in the bottle, it's the mission behind it too. Cytoplan is 100% owned by a charitable foundation, which means everything they do is about helping people live well for longer. It's not about trends or quick fixes, it's about real, lasting health.
That is so wonderful to know. And whether it's our energy, perimenopause, menopause itself, sleep, immunity, or just staying on top of your health, they've got you covered. You can also get a free health questionnaire and a consultation by ringing the helpline.
So if you're ready to take ownership of your health, check out Cytoplan, powered by nature, proven by science, and rooted in purpose. We'll pop the link and an exclusive 15% discount code in the show notes. Hello, I'm Karen Mellers.
Hello there, I'm Dr Rosy Daniel.
You've just tuned in to Alive and Loving It, and we're here to help you bring joy and energy back to your life. Oh, thank you so much for joining us again on Alive and Loving It podcast, episode 42. But more importantly, the third one with our beautiful new co-host, Evelyn Liddell-Davies. It's your energy today, Evelyn, that's going to keep us going. Because at 42 episodes, me and Rosie need a little bit of a boost. How are you both?
Absolutely marvellous, Karen, and just delighted to see you, Evelyn. Radiant.
Thank you. Yes, I'm having a good day today. I've ticked loads off, shelved it, moving on. So yeah, I'm getting on with it today.
Excellent. And you just said you're going down to the Chelsea Flower Show.
Yes.
Very
exciting.
Inspired to bring that whole culture of Walida into that beautiful space.
It's such a lovely vibe down there. Seriously, it's like everyone is going on holiday. They're all in such a good mood. And I think it's the plants, isn't it? So we were just discussing how plants lift your energy and lift your moods. And so it's just fabulous.
We're not at all jealous, are we, Karen?
No, we're not. Where is our invitation? Yeah, I can imagine it, Evelyn, with all that beauty surrounding you, how wonderful it must be, and everybody being affected by that. So wonderful news. Well, today, though, we are here to talk about digestion. And I think we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of acid reflux and irritable bowel and constipation. So probably not a beautiful container that you've got down at the Chelsea Flower Show.
Compare and contrast.
Yeah, but so incredibly important, you know, from north to south, you know, from our mouth and our tastes and what goes on through our system, and whether we live with a comfortable digestive system or not. And so many people, their lives are ruled and ruined by what's going on in their gut. I bet you see, Evelyn, a lot of people coming to you with indigestion and gut problems.
Absolutely. And like myself included, because I have intolerances as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yes. And it is clearly a big question of learning what's right for us and what's going on for all of us. But I think, my starting point is that in the West, we tend to be overfed and undernourished, and that it's the big question of the what we eat, when we eat, how we eat, and whether we're able to relax enough to allow our digestive system to work, because it's a bit of a poor design of nature. But it's good in one way that if we're frightened and in alert and stress and fight and flight, the digestion is bypassed in favor of the brain to think and the muscles to run like hell. So, I see a lot of people whose digestion never really gets a look in because they are in fight and flight the whole time.
Well, I'm just thinking about how when my digestion system is working properly, I can't feel it. When it isn't working properly, oh my goodness, I can feel it. And doesn't it have so many different ways of talking to us through pain and noise and uncomfortableness? But one thing that happens with me is that if it takes me a while to listen to it, even though it can be really painful. Like, I wonder how many people are carrying on feeling something in their digestion, whereas we shouldn't really be feeling anything, should we?
No, it should be unconscious. Yeah.
And I think you've absolutely nailed it there, Karen, because that tuning in and listening to our bodies and just simply observing how did that meal I just ate make me feel. But even more, when am I full? Because we've been brainwashed, haven't we, into the 3 meals a day and snacks. And I know in Scotland there's a whole extra meal popped in at 10 o'clock at night, tea and with cake and, biscuits and things. And I think we've got to re-educate ourselves, haven't we, and just start developing that strong kinesthetic sense of what's right and what's enough. Yeah.
It's so different for people. I think we've got some common things that we're going to talk about today, but the key to it for me is listening to your body. And if it is making a noise or making a pain, then something is going on. I mean, what is it that's at the root of these complaints then, Rosy?
Well, a whole lot of things. So there's the question of the movement of the bowel. It's peristalsis, because what's supposed to happen from the minute our food arrives in the stomach is that it gets mixed up with the gastric acids and then goes through into the duodenum, the first part of the digestive system, where all the enzymes are poured in, the digestive enzymes from the pancreas, from the liver, the gallbladder, where the bile is stored. And that does the big digestive work. And that goes on through the jejunum in the small intestine, on through to the hind gut or the large intestine, starting with the appendix down in the right corner, bottom corner of the tummy. And then bizarrely, the large bowel comes up the right-hand side, across the top, down the left, and then into the sigmoid, colon, and rectum. And there are different things that affect different parts of us. At the top end, the question of sensitivities, intolerances, allergies, what makes us feel nauseated? Is the food too heavy for us? And I'm sure, Evelyn, in terms of those different types of people and the what people eat, and I'd love to hear from you about that. But just to say that, there's a lot of people in a state of what's called dysbiosis, where we have trillions of bacteria in our guts, which are very useful and are very symbiotic and all involved in this digestive process. But if we're too acidic, for example,
if we've not got the right balance of digestive enzymes, the microbiome can get out of whack and we get a dysbiosis. So we may be producing gas or up or down. People may be feeling bloating and pains. And that, of course, another thing that produces gas and pain is candida. So fungal infection of the gut, which we call systemic candidiasis, is very common these days because of the amount of sugar that we eat. So, people say I get terrible sugar cravings. Well, is it you or is it the candida that's calling for the sugar? And many, many more things. The bowel transit time. If you are eating insufficient fiber and the food is hanging around in the gut for too long, then that is a situation where we're more prone to getting a bowel cancer or diverticulitis, where there's little pockets where feces collects and inflammation can happen. And I think one of the biggies of now is the irritable bowel syndrome. And I think this can be caused by dysbiosis, and anybody listening, I would say always try a probiotic if you have that kind of thing going on where you're rocking between diarrhea and constipation. But also, absolutely first at the top of the list, learn to relax. Because, because of this whole idea that if you're tense and uptight, your gut just is not working for you. So I know I've put a lot of things on the table there. I mean, the reflux, the acidity, that's what a lot of people call indigestion, because when we're anxious, we secrete more gut acids, and that can actually literally be rising up our gullet and giving a burny sensation. Because strangely, within the stomach itself, you don't feel the burn of the acid, but the mucous membrane in your gullet is different, and you do feel the burn. Yeah. One little alert to pop in there is if you are getting this reflux going on, get your GP to check for Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria which likes acidic conditions and can cause a lot of mischief because it's linked to ulcers, gastric ulcers, duodenal ulcers, and stomach and esophageal cancers. So that needs to be clocked and treated.
The good news is you can treat it though, isn't it, Rosy?
Exactly. Exactly.
You can eradicate it. And so that's, that is the silver lining with that one, really, isn't it?
Oh yes, and I don't think people are aware enough that that is a dangerous thing, and the GPs seem to be not sufficiently alert to it. So I would just say definitely require your GP to give you a test if you're suffering with reflux.
Well, I've had a diagnosis recently, earlier this year, on your recommendation, Rosy, because I've been suffering with acid indigestion. I would say it's been creeping up for a couple of years. And I did that test in January. It was found positive. I had a week's quite strong antibiotics, but started to feel better immediately. And I'll go on to talk about, when you talk about remedies and things, what else I've followed up with. But I would say I'm about 85% better now. So, don't suffer with this. I see so many remedies out there like Rennie and over the counter, and it's almost normalized that actually as you get older, you will feel this discomfort. But again, you're bringing hope to us that actually you can do something about it.
Yes. And what was very noticeable when you got that diagnosis and it was treated is a lot of those aches and pains you'd been feeling went away. Because this opens up the window of leaky guts, because if the esophagus is inflamed and also the intestines, then larger molecules can go through than are supposed to, and these can arrive in our tissues, undigested protein molecules, for example, and cause an inflammatory response locally. So as the gut starts to heal, then you can find that pain and fatigue can become much, much better.
Mm. Mm. Evelyn, I can see you scribbling away there. I know you know so much on this subject from personal experience as well. Let's share some of Evelyn's wisdom.
Well, I like to talk about the three types. and we're all our own different and unique proportion of nervous and sensory properties, rhythmic properties, and metabolic limb properties. Each type has its own habits and patterns and rituals and things. If you understand more about that, you can really get to grips with what activities like lifestyle choices support you and which ones deplete you. And they're almost personality types in themselves. But with someone who lives a lot in their head, kind of nervous energy and very sensitive, normally cannot eat when they're stressed. That their desire to eat was really reduced. But generally this type, someone with a lot of these qualities, doesn't eat massive meals anyway. It's small and often, so nutrition rich. And sometimes it's even recommended that they have a little snack before going to bed because they can maybe wake up hungry, which certainly is not my type. I'm not allowed to have a snack before I go to bed. But I can't imagine waking up hungry. That's just not in my script, my makeup at all. And then there's a polar opposite. So this person is more inclined to absolutely love cooking and love eating what they cook. And it's not to say the other type doesn't. It's just that someone who's more metabolic limb has a desire to create and a desire to taste, and like they love sensory pleasures. It's, but also if this someone with a lot of these qualities is stressed, then they might eat more. So they might go to food for comfort.
That's me.
I just love it that there's all three of us on these screens. It just makes life so much easier.
That was not planned, but it's going so well. Go on.
It just works though. So then you have the one who nerve sense, who doesn't eat so much, metabolic limb, who just loves to eat, and probably portion control is something that they should really be wary of. I'm so sorry. I am the fun police.
Tell me how it is, Evelyn. I'm used to that with you. I can take it.
And then there's the one in the middle who can actually fluctuate between the two, depending. But for them, regularity, rhythm, like eating times, not eating times, regular bedtimes, sitting right. I mean, everyone benefits from sitting around a table and being grateful for the food that's in front of them and actually mindful of the way they eat, not just cramming it down. But the rhythmic type can sometimes view food as fuel. So believe it or not, they can forget to eat. Now, my husband is metabolic limb and he just doesn't understand how you can forget to eat. When he's having breakfast, he's talking about lunch and dinner. And I'm just like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. And he's like, no, this is serious. So yeah, it kind of, it doesn't define you, but it's certainly a big part of you and your behaviours and the way you live your life.
Could the different types then be more susceptible to some of these things that Rosy's talking about? So I've suffered with acid reflux and indigestion. Does that make sense for a nerve sense?
Well, there's a lot of nervous activity and the gut-brain axis has got a lot to do with it, hasn't it? So there's a lot of mental activity, as Rosy was saying. It's fright or flight, but is it a freeze as well?
Yes, and if you're stressed, you do secrete more gastric acid. So I would say definitely that goes together.
Yeah, I mean, I think now I can think something and make my stomach shoot out acid. I've had that much focus on it. I've had that. Well, I've been learning about, what is it that is causing the extra stomach acid? And I've pinned it down to a few people in my life and situations in my life. Because, so for the last maybe 10 days since I've been taking this homeopathic remedy, I've not felt the acid. But if I focus on it, I can do. Does that sound strange? Am I making that up, or can I really feel this connection between my mind and my stomach.
I think that's distinctly possible, and you're ever more aware of your triggers, and but I think with the metabolic type, like I am, my chef friend Jane Sen, we were having breakfast together, and I was talking about lunch and dinner, and she said, "I think you are actually Bengali, Rosie." And she's half Indian. And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, that's what we do. We talk about lunch and dinner at breakfast." But the other thing, and I think Winnie the Pooh is a metabolic type, the kind of when's lunch, But what we as metabolic types do, we tend to be rounder and less mobile. We're not the kind of people that say, "Oh, let's go for a walk," And so having a more sluggish bowel and more constipation, and I think that fits more with the metabolic type, and whereas the rhythmic probably is all in a better balance with the gut. Is that right, Evelyn?
To not give the metabolics a disservice, once you get going, you there's loads of stamina there. So, there are positives. Yes, but the rhythmic, if they don't have enough exercise, could be more prone to stasis and chaos. I think chaos ensues when there's no regularity in rhythm, and they're more prone to that. But also because, and I don't know if it's just me, but my thirst reflex isn't strongly there. So I make myself drink water now. I haven't always done that, but that's another thing that can really upset the stomach, isn't it? Everything is just multiplied when there's dehydration there too.
Definitely. So you're saying you don't feel thirst, you have to actually consciously.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. But I think we just need to get focus running on the how we eat and the what we eat, and the rushing of food. When you think of we're on a bit of an Italian tip at the moment, and French, when you think that lunch is the big meal of the day, and it's followed by a siesta and a rest, and you take time. You're not trying to rush through and get back to work, or you're actually allowing the digestive process to work. So, I think that's a massive issue in our culture, is people eating on the hoof, and also the lack of fiber. I, a long time ago, heard a study where mice, and I don't approve of animal experiments, by the way, but they were comparing mice who were eating cornflakes with mice eating the cardboard boxes that the cornflakes came in, and the mice eating the cardboard boxes became stronger than the ones eating the cornflakes. And then they added poison to both, a bit of poison to both the cornflakes and the cardboard. And the ones with the low fiber cornflakes got really, really ill. The ones with the high fiber cardboard were absolutely fine, because the poisons pass through. So if you have a slow gut transit time, then if you are taking in toxins, which, by the way, accumulate in water and fat. So these are called universal solvents. So a lot of persistent chemicals end up in the fat of animals. So if we're eating a diet that's really high in animal fat, that's subjecting us to more toxins. And higher meat content protein diets, it's a slower transit time. So you're putting yourself at risk there. Yeah. So many different elements to think about. But I love your focus on rhythm, Evelyn, because I do think that if we can pulse what we're eating and not overfeed, really, really, really cut down the amount we're eating and listen for that moment of satiation.
And a lot of what you're saying, Rosie, is making me think, again, we're sort of advocating the fact that a high plant diet is healthy for the gut. Is that the same for everybody, do you think? I mean, I know we're advocating that, and it's high in fiber, it's high in phytonutrients, but I'm just wondering if there's some people who, with these conditions, particularly like irritable bowel syndrome, whether it can make it worse, or, it can actually not be comfortable for people with IBS?
Well, yes. And if we can, with people with IBS, get them out of the high alert, this chronic hyperactivity, it can just change like night and day. Because you'll often find people with irritable bowel don't have it all the time. They have periods when it gets much worse and flares up. I know that the NLP approach, I know a practitioner who uses NLP to get people out of this stuck hyperarousal, the high stress alert. And obviously Dr. Alan Watkins would be saying heart rate variability, breathing, calming ourselves, and just coming back into balance. I know we've said this in every single episode.
Well, this is where the health creation mentorship comes in, because what you're describing there is a condition, a symptom that you might think fits firmly in the food and drink principle. But what you're suggesting is that, you look at other things going on in your life and make some changes there, like in stress or in community, and that reduces the stress, which then changes the symptom. It's a completely different way of approaching your wellness, not taking a pill for the symptom of IBS, but looking at the causes of it and bringing some of the other principles into balance. Because we are firm advocates for phytonutrients for plants. And I once heard a colleague of ours, Evelyn, at Wellida, Claire Hattersley, say to me that when you eat plants, particularly biodynamic plants, which can be really full of nutrients and vitality, even somebody without IBS can feel a little bit of cramping going on. But it's strengthening the digestive tract, that once it starts eating food that is that vital again, you can feel something happening, but you are strengthening your will and your digestive will.
Yeah, it's waking up the process, isn't it? But, you'd have to tread carefully because you don't want to put yourself off.
No. But I think that the question of giving time and respect to your digestion and allowing digestion to occur. So building in some time for digestion, when you're actually letting your internal housekeeping system do its thing, because we do get havoc if we don't. And then added to that, this problem of acidity and over acidification. So certainly in my lifetime, the drinking of wine has been normalized as a daily thing within a lot of English households or British households. That was not a thing in my childhood. My parents might have had a gin and tonic or a glass of sherry, but the idea of having 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine in the evening, which is very acidic and very calorific. So, and these are mainly empty calories, and same with fatty foods. So what do you think about this acidity problem? The fact we're putting so much more acidity in.
See, when you go on holiday or you go visiting to South Africa, I cannot believe the shelves in the pharmacies, because they're absolutely full of antacids, not like your little packets of Remedies and chewable tablets, but different sizes, different flavors, different strengths of antacids to make your system more alkaline, because the wine culture is so massive out there that it's just normalizing. So working in a pharmacy, you you often will see alkalizing salts and powders for cystitis or something like that, to make your urine more alkaline so it's not painful to go to the toilet. But you don't often see such an array for making your system more alkaline because of something you've ingested. I think that's fascinating. It's cultural as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and if you combine the acidity of tea, coffee, juices, vinegar, lemon. We have a sour tooth in this land. And I can now often, if I have 3 glasses of white wine, I will wake in the night with hip pain, nasty hip pain. My GP says it's a bursitis, which is a bit like a bunion on your toe when you've got a hip that's got a bit of a swelling around it. But literally, I can go for days without it hurting, have some wine, and off it kicks. And the incredible link with acidity and arthritis, I will mention this in other subjects, other episodes. But I've had people, and tomatoes are acidic. So one young woman who discovered, I met her at a party actually, she was only 36, and she had such severe arthritis that she was on 4 levels of medication, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, steroids, gold, and methotrexate, which is a cancer drug to stop proliferating cells. Anyway, I just said to her, just stop eating everything acidic. I saw the young lady about 9 months later at another party, and she practically kissed my feet. And she said, my arthritis has subsided to the level that the doctors can't even see it on the CAT scan anymore since stopping eating everything acidic. Then I saw her again a few months later, and how are you? She said, well, it's coming back again. And I said, so what are you doing differently? And she thought, and she said, oh my God, it's tomatoes. It's tomatoes that are kicking off my arthritis. I think this whole question of food intolerance and sensitivity is another one. And so there's 2 different things. There's food sensitivity, which is mediated by immunoglobulin IgG. And there's allergy, which is mediated by IgE. And IgE reactions are instant, like when you eat, crab and your face goes bright red, or nuts and you have an anaphylactic. That's an allergy. But the funny thing about food sensitivity is it's a delayed hypersensitivity reaction that can take up to 4 to 5 days to show up. So people don't link it with the actual food that is the trigger for them. That said, the most common foods in our society that kick people off are dairy foods and bread. So wheat and dairy. There's an awful lot of people who have a level of intolerance, and you can get an IgG food intolerance test from one of the big labs. Have either of you had that test done?
No, I haven't. I'm wondering whether I would actually, because if the acid reflux was still ongoing, I did wonder whether it was something I was eating, but I think mine is more a trigger to stress. But you're intolerant to some things, aren't you, Evelyn?
Yeah, over the last 20 years, I've been getting tested intermittently, and the list changes. If you don't eat what previously upset you, then it doesn't show on the test, which I think is quite incredible.
I've had people coming who've got irritable bowel, who've been like 5 times off the upper limit of normal of sensitivity to milk products. So I would always get people to check that when I'm working with anybody who comes to me with gastric symptoms. And there's another whole syndrome that's been described called SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. This is because the foods and maybe sugary foods, ultra-processed foods, are just causing a stimulation of the wrong kind of bacteria growing in the intestine. Yeah.
And I think one of the first signs I got, which is partly why, I wonder if it's why I joined Wellida. I was interested in complementary and integrative approaches anyway, but I was getting really itchy skin. And I wonder how many people who have got itchy skin haven't associated that with something that they're eating. Because it really is it's like boiling the frog in the bath water or something? They talk about, because it's really gradual, so you don't notice it. But, if you were to put the frog into a boiling pot, then it would notice straight away. So you just she says, scratching. But you kind of, it creeps up on you, and before you know it, yeah, I mean, I was eating a product which had trace amounts of wheat in it. And I hadn't noticed it on my list because I'd been avoiding wheat for a while. And I started getting these ulcers in the sides of my fingers. Really, really itchy. Like I would wake at night and scratch them intently. And I couldn't get to grips with it. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I realised it was some crisps, and it was way, way, way down the INCI list of ingredients. So it was like really low concentration, but it was coming, the metabolites were coming through in my skin, which, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's, of course, we can't have an episode on digestion without mentioning ultra-processed foods and how much additive is in these ultra-processed foods and colorants and preservatives. And, we always say, go back to single ingredient things or simple things. I managed to dig up some small beetroot from the garden the other day and just roast it with a bit of olive oil and garlic and basil. Oh my God. So delicious. So delicious. Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear, actually, though, that our digestion system finds many, many ways to talk to us. Because what I heard you say, Evelyn, then was watch for it on your skin as well. So are we, in your role as a Weleda esthetician, and you are doing treatments on the skin, are you noticing that somebody that's got a skin condition is also got something going on with their digestive system?
Often, I mean, I think a lot of it is in the consultation, talking to someone. There is this time, and we've talked about this before, the liver time between 2 and 4 in the morning. If you're having regular awakening between 2 and 4 in the morning, then that's generally the time that your liver is at its peak, and that shouldn't waken you. And if it is, then it's because maybe it just needs a little bit of support. It's not drastic. It might not be drastic what's happening, but actually it's a warning sign that you need to maybe address something, drink more, support your liver. There's a lovely combination which I know the doctors have prescribed, and it's wild strawberry leaf with vine leaf, which are, both of these are antioxidant rich. They're macerated and mixed together, and basically it gets the polarity of your gallbladder and your liver. It supports this diurnal rhythm, and it just really supports metabolism through the liver in a positive way. So if your digestion is struggling between 2 and 4 in the morning, if they're regular waking, then that's where I would go. Unfortunately, there's, you've got to look at the excipients, so there can be wheat in there, but there are other liver supports as well. Yeah.
The French call it a crise de foie, don't they? A crisis of the liver.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an actual thing. Because, we do know that French food, there's a lot of focus on butter and cream and alcohol and, things that are definitely creating a fatty liver, and also gallstones. So gallstones, so the gallbladder is the little receptacle that holds the bile. The liver makes bile, which is a sort of greeny fluid, which is like washing up liquid. Actually, its function is to emulsify the contents that are coming through from the stomach. So to break it down into little particles that make it easier for the gut to absorb. But if we have so much fat in the bloodstream, we can make fatty stones in the gallbladder. We can also make chalky stones in the gallbladder if we're too acidic and we're depositing calcium. So, these symptoms are, again, they're excess symptoms. I mean, I know that just what's popped into my mind is that, people not so very far away from us in different countries have the the problem of starvation and lack of food. And it's such a bizarre polarization in society that, we're all getting these diseases of excess. And, our brothers and sisters not so very far away are just not getting enough. It just feels that we should be able to send more to the others who just don't have the luxury that we have of food on tap the whole time. And I think working from home, I mean, this is another note to self here. I think all this working from home that we're all doing these days, my study's about 10 steps from my fridge. So, we have to bring in a new level of refinement of our self-care in terms of what we're eating and when we're eating, I think.
So what is out there for us from the natural world to help us ease inflammation or irritation of our gut and ease our digestion? What are your go-tos, Evelyn?
There is a plant called lemon balm, which is Melissa, which is very calming for the mind, but also calming for the digestion and smooth muscle, and that together with some warming spices like cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves and coriander, all with something in common is that they're all carminatives. So calming the smooth muscle and stopping spasm and bringing warmth, but also bringing calm to the area. I mean, it is one of my worst nightmares when working in a pharmacy that someone comes in and says that they have digestive issues, because you've got such a variety to go from, haven't you? And what one person calls a digestive issue and what another person calls a digestive issue can be different ends of this north-south pole that you talked about, Rosie. So it's complicated, isn't it? It's just really complicated. But there is, a general approach of calming and bringing calm to that area was something that I used when I went walking on the Machu Picchu trail. And I used some calming drops in my water and with all these ingredients. And essentially I had a queue outside my tent every morning because everyone had digestive issues with altitude sickness and just a change in food types, that, there honestly was a queue of people outside my tent for something to calm their stomach, but also to rub some embrocation with arnica in it as well because of all the walking. So yeah.
And I love the Willida, the digestion calming drops and the oral relief spray. I think that can be, if you do feel indigested, that can be really relieving. And I just wanted to offer, this is something not for the faint-hearted, which is to deal with piles. Would we like to know about that?
Yes, go on then.
If you must.
So if I must. Well, I had a boyfriend when I was in medical school who was a surgeon, trainee surgeon. He said to me, you do know that when people come in to have these pile operations, all we're doing is stretching the anal sphincter muscles. That we have two sphincters, the external sphincter and the internal sphincter. Now, you've heard me talking about us taking a grip in the body. We can take that grip in the top of the stomach that gives us reflux. We can take a grip at the other end in the anal sphincter. And what the pile actually is, by strange design of nature, the blood vessels, the veins, go from the outside of the buttocks up through those anal muscles. And so if they're tight, the veins get blocked and it's like a blowout on an inner tube of a bicycle. You get a bump where the vein is swollen and either very, very itchy or extremely sore. So the bit that's not for the faint-hearted is in the bath or with just little plastic gloves or a lot of lubrication. You can insert a finger into the anus, not where the sore bit is, but very gently, and even 2 fingers, and give yourself an anal stretch for a minute or 2, preferably in the bath, and then they're gone. The next day, or the day after the piles have gone, because the blood can flow and everything is better.
Wow. So people can try that at home.
It's an important tip that,
it is an important tip, yeah.
Have days and days of agony. They can't sit down. It's so sore. They're trying to put lignocaine on their bums, Anusol and all these other things. But believe me, this works.
I would always recommend, and this isn't for the faint-hearted either, so brace yourself, but you actually apply any salve, and there is one that I know gets recommended by the doctors. It contains antimony, which is an old metal, and it's very good at just reducing inflammation and organising tissue, which is quite deep inflammation. But actually to apply that to the area and to reinsert the pile back into the system, to push it up with your fingers, and that takes the pressure off as well. So, and that's what's causing the pain.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here.
I am wondering how we got to this subject, but we definitely went north to south this episode, and we're not coming back up again.
Don't push it that far.
Yes. Well, I am actually. I'm going to go north again, which is sore mouth, zinc lozenges. A lot of people, because of all the acid, the coffee, the tea they're drinking, can have a sore, burny mouth. And if you suck zinc lozenges, which you can get in a health food store or some chemist, that will really soothe the mouth and improve oral hygiene. Yeah. So much this could be a whole season, couldn't it?
I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to trump you, but there's a mouthwash with myrrh and Britannia in it, which is fabulous for just strengthening your oral mucosa, and it has I think there's calendula in there too, but the myrrh is antibacterial, and it just really, it's really good for oral hygiene, but for strengthening. And I know people who, before they have any procedures for cancer, etc., use this, and the integrity of the tissue in the mouth is there for longer. So mucositis, there are papers out there if you want to have a look about it.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing, and I it's just made me remember that another big test that I do when people come in with troubled digestion is a test that Genova Labs do called GI Effects, where they are looking at a lot. They're looking at the bugs, any parasites, the metabolic balance, the digestive enzymes, the inflammatory elements like calprotectin. So it gives you a very strong picture. And a final thought is that I've heard that there are microbiologists working on psychobiotics, not just probiotics, to help our digestion. But apparently there are certain strains of bacteria that feed on sugar, which create anxiety. So these guys are now, and ladies are now trying to focus on correcting the microbiome to reduce anxiety.
I just want to leave us with a final thought as well, although it might spark more discussion. I think what we're currently trying to link, Rosie, and I know you see it as well, is that it is so closely linked to the planet health, our digestive health. The planet and the soil is not healthy, and neither are we. And we're having these follow-on consequences into our digestion. And the two are very strongly linked for me. And I know that you speak about it a lot, but it's not a conversation that I see very often. So maybe that's another episode, but I do feel very called to help people see that link.
Well, the problem is intensive food production, monoculture. I worked on a lettuce farm where they put 6 lots of chemicals per batch of lettuces every 6 weeks on the field. the concentrations of minerals in our soils are over 50 times lower than they were at the time of the Great War last century. So, if we can return to organic, locally grown, seasonal foods, but also pulses. If you can bring beans, lentils, and also polenta into the diet, because cornstarch has inulin, and inulin goes right through us and feeds the bugs in the hind bowel that get rid of persistent chemicals.
Any final thoughts from you, Evelyn?
You saw me scribbling, didn't you?
I did. I am watching you and like, there's another gold nugget to come out there.
Well, when you look at the soil, the microbiome of the soil and biodiversity of that microbiome in the soil is so important. And that's why organic farming, or even better, biodynamic farming, cultivation with natural rhythms, and not using synthetic fertilizers or synthetic composting, but natural ways to work with the planet is so important. But also, eating food that comes from that soil, that to feed your own microbiome. It's the inside and the outside, isn't it? And to bring balance to both. You need biodiversity in your gut, and the soil.
I heard a quote a couple of days ago that the Latin name for soil is humus, and the word human is derived from humus. We are literally of the soil. If the soil is not well, neither will we be. It's no coincidence that the planet is suffering, and so are we in so many ways.
And so much going on to rectify it with the Soil Association and the biodynamic farmers, and, those of us with growing things in our own garden, which is, I think every single one of us, even if it's just plant pots and on our windowsills, we can be growing things to bring fresh, live nutrients into our bodies.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness. What a deep, rich, interesting. Some of the clips from this episode will be going into our backstage moments. How wonderful to have this rich conversation with you both. And I think we've just proved there isn't anything that we won't talk about on Alive and Loving It. See you next week, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Alive and Loving It. We really hope that today's conversation has sparked your passion and showed you ways to open up into the vibrant life that's possible for you.
Absolutely, Rosie. I mean, we do have to remember that transformation begins with love, and that is self-love, love for others, and love for our beautiful planet. When you embrace love and you just allow yourself to receive as much as you give, you unlock the fullest potential of your life.
That is the truth, Karen. And we're here to support you every step of the way on your journey. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, please join our community and check out our trainings and our services, such as my Dr. Rosy Daniel clinic and Karen's beautiful women's circles and retreats, and the events where we can all go deeper together. And do please send us your feedback. We want to hear your ideas for the podcast, who you'd like us to interview, and the questions you want us to ask and get answered. Through the contact page on our website, just go to aliveandlovingit.org.
I've really enjoyed reading them. But when you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter and updates. And what about following us on Instagram as well? We are at Alive and Loving It Community. Once you've signed up to the newsletter, you'll receive extra notes from today's show and more inspiration to help you live your most vibrant life.
Thank you for being with us. Keep shining, stay true to yourself, and remember, this is your time to live your fullest, healthiest life.
So until next time, keep doing what you love most in life. I know Rosie and I will be. We're so excited to connect with you on the next episode of Alive and Loving It. And we welcome you with open hearts to our Alive and Loving It community.